Good evening. It's time now for Talk of the Bay, KSQD's local talk show, spanning the Monterey Bay and beyond, from community radio station K-Squid. I am your host, Rachel Ann Goodman, and today we're going to be talking about libraries, the last socialist experiment on the earth. A great idea to put books in the hands of readers, but now libraries are going much beyond their original intent, reaching out into communities, bringing us all together in tough times, and offering a whole range of educational opportunities that go way beyond simply checking out a book. We'll be talking to two different groups of people that represent two different library systems. One, the Santa Cruz Public Libraries, and two, the Carmel Public Library. That's ahead on Talk of the Bay. Before we begin the program, I would like to acknowledge some sad news I received today, and perhaps other members of our community did as well. Glenn Schaller passed away on October 30th, suddenly at his home and unexpectedly. He was a labor organizer, a constant voice for social justice, and an all-around mensch, and he will be missed terribly by the ones who knew him and the ones who worked with him. Glenn Schaller, rest in power. I'm Rachel Ann Goodman, and today on the program I'm joined by Rowan Ronner and Denise Ward. Rowan handles the Community Reads program among many other hats. She's only wearing one, the headphones today. And Denise Ward is a volunteer and program chair. She is with Friends of Aptos and also the chair of Community Reads. Welcome to both of you, and thank you for being with us on Talk of the Bay.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
Great to have you here. Why do we need to read as a community all the same book? I've heard of these programs. Sometimes I remember my kids all reading the same books. Tell us about Community Reads programs in general, and then we'll drill down into the various ones that have been recent. Rowan, I'll start with you.
This has been an experiment that's happened for decades. The Great California Read with Steinbeck, and now in our tiny county of Santa Cruz with our Community Reads. It's really important for all of us to read the same book so that we're all on the same page,
so to speak. Even if we interpret it completely differently, which is typical of reading a book.
Absolutely. We value opposing viewpoints on the same topic and themes, but the point is that the themes are concentrated and we can talk about them. And we can arrange programming around those themes to deepen our understanding of both the book and each other and our thoughts on them.
And Steinbeck, you mentioned. What was the book that was the commonly read book in that program?
Oh, I believe it was Grapes of Wrath.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we also read something called The Death and Life of Monterey Bay. That was in our second year of our Community Reads, and it had a lot of references to Steinbeck. So, and also the book last year, it was called Mary Coyne by Marissa Silver, and it was a Depression era book. A lot of it took place in the Central Valley, Salinas area. And what I always like to say is that there's all these sort of little miracles that happen when we're planning our programming for each of these books. And one of them, the impetus for Marissa Silver to write the book started with a photograph of the migrant mother that was taken by Dorothea Lange. And one of Dorothea's actual relatives, her son's daughter, so her daughter-in-law, she became a photographer herself and did a presentation for us. So that's how close to home that book was.
And that photo alone has evoked so many people to write essays about the image and what it did or didn't do. So that's really fantastic. You were able to bring that story and history into Community Reads. How many people do you know participate, and how do you know how many of them are reading this book? Is it that you have them all checking it out of the library? How does it work logistically?
So the generosity of the Friends of the Aptos Library, they purchase additional copies of the book and donate it to the library so we can bulk up the collection that's available for our community to check out. We also buy additional ebooks and e-audiobooks. And as always, it's available on audio CD and in large print for accessibility.
The other thing we do is we purchase a book kit, and that can be used by book clubs. It consists of 8 copies of the book. So, that is a good thing for facilitating deeper discussion.
But we do keep an eye on the holds request, and we love to see the numbers just climb higher and higher, to see the desire for this book and to participate in the programs. Also, we have a registration on all of our programs. While they are free and open to the public, we do like to have a registration just so we can anticipate how many people are going to be in the room, and we can appropriately plan the space. But of course, walk-ins are always welcome, and we see really good numbers, usually in the double digits.
Always, I would say.
Sometimes in the triple digits. In the case of, we had a concert last year, and the house, it was standing room only. It was packed, and we were really glad the fire marshal wasn't there.
And the concert was related to the book?
It was Depression-era music. And it's funny because when somebody first came up with that concept, I thought, that sounds depressing.
But no.
No, we had a huge turnout. It was wonderful.
Woody Guthrie songs, I assume.
Yes, of
and
course.
Things about the Dust Bowl. There was some amazing music. In fact, that was back, right around the time there was still a lot of homemade music being made, and the recording industry was in its very early stages, so there was amazing variety. It hadn't genreized yet. So I bet that was exciting.
Oh,
yeah.
It was.
Wow.
We recorded it and put it on our YouTube channel, and it still gets hits. So even after all the events are done, the community still wants to remember and be a part of these events.
Well, think of K-Squid. Maybe we can broadcast it if it's radio quality. That's really exciting. So what's the span of time people have to read the book?
Well, we actually, we have a voting party, which we had in the middle of September. And we now have quite a large email list. We invite everybody on it. This year we had, I think, close to 65 people attend. And we present 4 books that have been shortlisted by our committee. And then people vote. So this year, The Monk of Mocha by Dave Eggers was the book that was selected. So we announced just a few days after that voting event the chosen book. The events won't start until toward the last week in January, and the events span 6 weeks. So people always say, why do you do that? And why don't you just have like one event a month? But what happens when you attend, 10 or 12 events within a 6-week time span is, well, I always say your head feels like it's going to explode because you've just been delving into these themes from all different angles. And, there's a lot that goes on in terms of expanding your mind and challenging ideas that you might have had about certain topics.
So a 6-week period.
Mm-hmm.
And why did you pick this particular book? Why did the group, panelists, whoever picked it, what was it about this book, and what were the runners-up? So I'm just curious.
Okay, the runners-up, one of them was a beautiful book called The Island of Missing Trees. The other one was a really fun memoir about a jogger who adopts a donkey, and that was called Running with Sherman. And the other one was very topical. It was
Clara and the Sun.
It was Clara and the Sun. And that's all about, it's narrated by a robot. So that would have also lent itself to some pretty good programming. But this one, The Monk of Mocha, it's sort of this interesting combination. It's the actual story of a man named Mokhtar Al-Kashani, who he's raised in the Tenderloin neighborhood in San Francisco, and he's sort of going nowhere fast, just really trying to figure out what to do with his life. And then he gets this inspiration to sort of resurrect the coffee industry in Yemen. So the beginning of the book is a lot of very interesting information about coffee, how it's grown and sourced and qualified. And toward the end, when Mokhtar starts making some trips to Yemen, it gets very exciting in the sense that the war is breaking out and he almost gets killed and kidnapped and many things happen to him, and it just becomes a page turner at the end. So people who have read it just find it to be insightful and interesting and exciting.
And it's a national bestseller. If you just joined me here on K-Squid 90.7 and 89.7 FM, I'm Rachel Ann Goodman. The program is Talk of the Bay here on K-Squid, and I'm speaking with Denise Ward, who you just heard, a volunteer and program chair with the Community Reads program, and Rowan Ronner, who works for the Santa Cruz Public Libraries and is also part of the Community Reads. Rowan, what did you think of the book when you read it? What were some of the highlights for you?
I was so impressed with this man stumbling through life, trying to figure out what he was. As a millennial, I feel it deep down. And then he finds his passion and he follows it, and he doesn't let anything stop him. And so many things try to stop him. Planes, trains, automobiles, a civil war.
And he just wanted to grow coffee. That was it. Such a simple dream.
Right.
And did Dave Eggers, you think, find someone to base this character off of? It's not a documentary, right? It's nonfiction.
It's a biography.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah. No. Mokhtar is a real person. And his trials and tribulations were just as real. And I read it as an audiobook, and the narrator just makes Mokhtar into his own storyteller throughout the novel. Mokhtar utilizes his ability to tell his story to make sure his story gets told, which I thought was crazy and beautiful.
Yeah, we would not know half of this if it weren't for their meeting. Do you know how we met him?
I don't, actually.
I don't either, but we'll have an opportunity to ask him that question because the two of them are going to be coming here to Santa Cruz on January 30th.
Mokhtar's coming?
Yes.
You get to meet the subject of a book. That is very cool. And Dave Eggers. This is a national bestseller, so it's not like you just picked it out of the sky. It's getting a lot of attention. It's a national bestseller. I don't know what else you can say about it except that lots of people have given it acclaim, including the San Francisco Chronicle, who says it's exquisitely interesting, and Los Angeles Times says it's gripping. So those are some pretty strong words in favor of reading this book. And anyone who loves coffee, right? Who doesn't? Probably 5 people listening.
I think there was some sort of report saying that Santa Cruz is the number 1 per capita of independent coffee shops and coffee drinkers.
I have to brag a little bit because one of my students had an assignment to give a personal narrative, and instead he brought in personal drip coffees for everyone in the class, A+. Wow. And he's talked about his dream of starting a coffee shop, and it was 11th Hour Coffee. So that was several years ago, and it's still thriving, and they have 2 locations in Santa Cruz. So we are the independent coffee capital of the world. So perfect choice. And the guy's name is Mocha on top of it all.
Right. I think 11th Hour is on our list of coffee places to contact to see if they want to do programming with us.
I can imagine if you did a blindfold test of different coffee shops in Santa Cruz, it would be very popular, and see if for all of the advertising and people who are connoisseurs, they can tell the difference between different coffee shops and different roasting companies. And
that would be super interesting. To me, because I'm a huge fan of coffee, one of the most interesting parts of the book was when they were talking about qualifying coffee. And there's an institute in Mill Valley, actually, that Mokhtar goes to. He attends and graduates from. And it's like being a sommelier or a master perfumer. You have to know all the notes. You have to, when you're sipping the coffee, be able to tell where it was grown, how it was roasted. It's just unbelievable, the knowledge that goes into that. So I thought that part of the book was really interesting.
So a book after our own habits, so to speak. We're talking about books and libraries and this reading program. I wanted to take a transition now. This sounds like a wonderful program, and people can find out more about it on your website, I assume.
Yes, and on the Friends of the Aptos Library website.
Great. And you can also buy it probably locally if you didn't want to wait to check it out, but you're going to have extra copies. So
yes,
good to know. So libraries have been unwittingly, and sometimes they didn't choose to be dragged into the culture wars, but have found themselves in the middle of them, not really of their own choice. And I'm talking about banned books, which have seeming to take on a life of its own the past couple of years. I teach a mass media course at Cabrillo where we talk about this every year, and we're always noticing that there are attempts to ban books every year, usually based on the sexual orientation of the author or the ethnic background of the author and the content, not always the authors, but the content, as being inappropriate for age. But it has taken an uptick in the past couple of years to the point where there are laws passed where you can't even have certain books in classrooms, and there are people convinced that these are dangerous books. So how does the Santa Cruz Public Libraries deal with this, or the system in general, and how do you, quote, celebrate, I don't know if that's the right word, Banned Books Week, which was only back in September. We didn't do a program on it, so this is an opportunity to talk about the efforts of the library to educate people about the First Amendment and other important parts of our culture.
Of course. Our credo is to protect the freedom to read, always. And we do, in fact, celebrate Banned Books Week. You'll see displays up everywhere, buttons on lapels, necklaces worn, all proclaiming which is our favorite banned book, who's our favorite character or author.
Which is your favorite banned book? I had to ask since you brought it up.
Boy, there's so many.
Probably Sendek's The Night Kitchen.
That was popular when I was a little kid. I never thought much about it being dangerous.
There's just one page with one illustration that parents wanted it covered up.
The naked butt? The other side?
Yeah,
okay.
The other side.
This is like a 1-year-old, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not graphic. It's just what it is.
Human body of a 1-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my sister is a first grade teacher, and it was, Sendek is one of her favorite authors, and that book was in our house growing up, and it's like it was never anything wrong with it, and I enjoyed the book myself, and it's always had a place in my heart.
It seems to be that it's a very small group of people that are able to ban these books, or at least challenge them. There's a difference between challenged and banned, I understand, and they're more successful at the challenge part than the banning, but unfortunately they're becoming more successful on the censorship side.
Yeah, so as you said, things have escalated, and that's one way in which they escalated. It used to be that it was one individual who challenged a singular title or book. Now we have singular individuals who are challenging multitudes of books at once. And then when they get into a group, you have that entire group banning challenging all of the same books. And that just increased it like 200%.
It's sort of like the mob mentality of get a pitchfork and a torch and attempt to burn, symbolically burn the book.
Yeah, they are organized.
Yeah, this is Moms for Freedom, right? The group that's most organized and vocal.
They're the loudest, but they are far from being alone. And here in Santa Cruz, we are so fortunate to have the community that we do and the library system that we do. We rarely face challenges, and to my knowledge, we've never banned anything. We have a fantastic collection management service in our libraries who work day and night to make sure that our collection is the best around. And it's also their responsibility to vet any challenges that come through. we have a form that you can request. And once you fill it out with the book that you have a disagreement with, whether it's in placement or in content or, anything, it's reviewed by a staff of experts, and we write you a response as to our decision.
So have those kinds of things gone up where you're like had to hire new staff in order to handle this level of challenge, or is it calm on the Western Front, so to
It's
speak?
all calm on our Western Front. Like I said, we are so fortunate that we rarely face any challenges.
There was a response to book banning in Georgia that I thought was quite creative. They made a giant bus and they outfitted it with all the banned books that were being taken off the shelves, and they gave them away at every stop. So it was called the Banned Bookmobile. And people would have, little cafe tables set up right outside the bus, and they would give away book after book. And they really made these books, which hadn't been known that well, fly off the shelves. And now, in some cases become bestsellers.
Brilliant.
But I don't think we want to, make it seem like, the freedom of speech people won, because in some cases it's schools where these books, which were not in required mode, they were just in the elective mode of the library, were taken away from children who might have wanted to read them. So I don't know if you wanted to add to that, Denise, at all.
No, but I like that irony of, drawing attention to something that's been banned and making it more popular than ever in the case of banned books.
Yeah, it reminds me of the scene in Fahrenheit 451 where everybody's memorizing books because they burned them all. We're not there yet, thank God.
Yeah, thank goodness.
So we have about 5 more minutes. I wanted to give you the opportunity, Denise and Rowan, to talk about any programs upcoming that you'd like to highlight. I know that the library has become almost an event producer as well as a place you can get cool books to check out. Do you want to talk about any of the upcoming events that you're organizing?
Well, we're extremely excited in Aptos because we have a new branch that's going to be opening in the next couple of months. We don't have the exact date yet, but it's beautiful. And, I think that just in itself, having this new piece of architecture is going to increase people's enthusiasm for the library itself. The Friends of the Aptos Library have been discussing new types of programming that they'll be able to offer in that space. Right now, our Community Reads is our largest program. It takes a lot of work to put it together, but we support summer reading programs and other programs, but we want to develop some new ones to kind of coincide with the opening of the library. So I'll have to kind of say, stay tuned on that.
Yeah, it's exciting to have a brand new library or completely renovated library in a community. And I know the library system has been going around and renovating, Felton right before COVID. I closed it down, opened this beautiful library, and now it's open again. And there's one in Aptos opening soon, and there's one in Capitola, is there not?
There is. 2005 Wharf Road. Come give us a visit.
Nice. That's so exciting. And I want to give a shout out to Diane Cowan, who is on the board of directors of Natural Bridges Media, the nonprofit that started K-Squid and runs it. And she's been a great partner in bringing you to us. And also, there's going to be a series of interviews with the people that are part of United Against Hate, which is another library initiative that is speaking out and back again about hate crimes and hate speech in our culture. So they have a bunch of events planned, which we'll be telling folks about as they come a little bit closer. Any final thoughts on libraries and their future and how it all is going to work in 10 years? I know that you don't have a crystal ball, but just given the trajectory of all these new events and more in community engagement, it's an exciting time it must be to be part.
It is very exciting. We will still be here in 10 years. We'll still be here in 100 years. Libraries will never be going away as we seek to become more community centers than just libraries, where we no longer people. We encourage people to be themselves and celebrate themselves in our spaces.
Very cool. Thank you. That was Rowan Ronner, and Denise Ward will give you the last word.
Well, I just hope that a lot of people will read the Monk of Mocha and attend our events. We're going to have about 10 to 12 events, all different kinds of music and art and writing and informative lectures about the Yemeni history and culture. So those will begin the end of January and run through the first week in March, and they're all free and open to the public.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, both of you, to come in, and I hope you'll come back again sometime soon.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right. KSQD Santa Cruz, Community Radio for the Monterey Bay. I'm Rachel Ann Goodman. If you're just hearing us for the first time at 89.7, tell a friend. We would love to have you spread the word about our programming. And we'll be talking in just a moment to Alexandra Fallon of the Carmel Public Library about programs there. But first, here is an announcement about what to do with that old car of yours.
Bought a new car recently? Not sure what to do with that old one? How about donating it to K-Squid? We'll take it off your hands and you'll get a tax deduction. Visit our website, ksqd.org, and follow the support menu.
KSQD Santa Cruz, 90.7 FM. And it's great to have you along for the ride as we talk about libraries. Some of my earliest memories were going with my mom to the Berkeley Public Library. And when I went there was just all these books on the shelves, and I could check out any of them. It smelled like books, and it really launched my love of reading, which has continued to this very day. Alexandra Fallon probably feels the same way about books. She is the executive director of the Friends of the Carmel Public Library. Welcome to Airwaves of K-Squid, Alexandra.
Thank you so much, Rachel. It's wonderful to be here.
Great to have you. And I don't know if you were able to hear any of that conversation on the recent folks that were in here talking about libraries.
Well, yes, I was able to hear the last bits of it, and it's no surprise that we have so much in common, so much, in fact, that I'm actually reading Dave Eggers' The Eyes in the Impossible, his other latest book, and we are actually having him and Douglas Brinkley at our annual event, which I'll tell you more about as we get into our conversation.
That is so interesting. That's not planned? It's just happened that way, huh?
Yeah, he's the man of the moment. I think.
That name sounds familiar. What else? I forgot to ask the previous folks what else Dave Eggers has written, because I know he's written some other famous books.
Well, I'm going to get the title wrong. It was his memoir when he was 29 about staggering gene works. I don't want to say it because I'll get it wrong. I'll have to look it up. But most recently, he had written The Circle, and then a sequel to The Circle was The Every, about a fictitious book about surveillance and artificial information.
I read The Circle. Okay, yeah. So The Circle's about a Google-type company that goes bad and controls our elections and surveils your every moment. And it was a little bit prescient, yes. Unfortunately.
Right, and The Every is like I said, I'm not going to say exactly a sequel, but it's similar. And it was really funny because when I was thinking, I guess I'll just go into, may I just let your listeners know what we do at the Carmel Public Library Foundation?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so we are the fundraising arm for the library. And so the city of Carmel funds the librarian salaries and building maintenance, and our community provides funding for everything else, 100% of the books, of equipment, programs, services, everything. So we're really very much tied to them. And every year we have this annual fundraising event along with our annual campaigns and so forth and other fundraising initiatives. But the spring event takes place in Sunset Center, and we try to identify like the most compelling and relevant topic of the year, and then find the speakers that really fit the bill. And this year I had a real challenge because there were so many things that were happening and converging at the same time. Geopolitics, climate, you name it, AI. And I ended up kind of looking backwards and to history to inform me of where we need to go and be. And I contacted Douglas Brinkley, and I asked him. I said, I'm thinking about the human edition, essential observations in the accelerated age of everything. And he liked that idea and the name of that. And he said, yes, who are we going to get to in conversation? And I said, who do you think? And he mentioned Dave Eggers, and that's how that, so there'll be in conversation April 23rd, and that's our fundraising event at Sunset Center.
That sounds fantastic. If I always say this to people, but if there's any chance you could record it in radio quality, we might consider airing parts of it. We're always looking for good audio conversations to share, and this sounds like a particularly juicy topic for all of us right now. I don't know how you felt, but when I started to read about, Chat GPT entering all aspects of life and watch Tristan Harris's video about what would happen to us, when all of this accelerated, I began to think, did we really need this right at the moment? How did you feel?
How I felt my mind was blown when when a very dear friend sent me the Geneva conference with the robots talking about policy. I don't know if you saw that, but I will forward that to you. But it was chilling, absolutely chilling, because they had several different robots speaking about, it was very Blade Runner-esque, actually, about policy and answering questions from the audience and so forth. And I thought that's kind of what piqued my interest in an AI edition or an AI talk. And I just started going down so many rabbit holes. I mean, there was so much you could talk about policy and how it will affect the economy. And then I started thinking about language and started reading more Noam Chomsky and Daniel Dennett and more philosophical. And it went further and further into what it means to be human in the age of all of this technology is what kind of piqued my interest.
Yes, and it is such a conundrum or kind of a moment of truth for us. I really recommend people watch this video. It came out in March by Tristan Harris, one of the great ethicists of our time concerning technology and especially AI. He was the one behind The Social Dilemma, the film, and he wants us to get out ahead of AI instead of mopping up after its worst effects. So he had a real call to action, because what he says is once it gets entangled with banking, military, you name it, it's harder to deal with the effects than it would be if we were to pause and consider the consequences and then move forward in a more deliberative way. But of course, when people are competing, their companies are competing, they just want to get it out as fast as they can first.
Oh my gosh, you've seen first it was ChatGPT, now it's 3, 4, by the time we get off this call, there'll be ChatGPT 10. It's like,
I'm a professor, I teach, and so I have been plugging in my, writing prompts into ChatGPT to see what it spit out. And I don't know if I can keep up with understanding whether it has been used or not. And so now we're going back to writing by hand in the classroom, which my students are not super happy about. There's only probably a few students using it, but I think it's going to go up rapidly if it hasn't already gotten past me. And our chancellor says we're not allowed to use the program that analyzes whether ChatGPT has been used in the essay process. And so we're pretty much left to guess.
I absolutely, I had to go on ChatGPT and try it before I started, riling against it, right? But or railing against it rather. And I have to say that I kind of look at it like a calculator. It's fast. It kind of spits out something, but it doesn't solve an entire problem. If it's a larger problem, it doesn't really give context and all that. But I think in a basic form, it reminds me of the way the word processor was at the beginning, or I don't know. It doesn't have that kind of the quality that makes me fearful. That isn't the part. I think it's everything that goes beyond ChatGPT.
Yeah, like people suddenly losing their confidence in their ability to create new works. So,
Oh, yeah, and like the usurping of creative works and
right,
all of
right.
everything. Yes, like the rest of it. I mean, it's interesting because, like you said, Tristan was asking for us to get out in front of it, or to have the bigger conversations before we go and launch into something like this. And it kind of boggles the mind to think that we wouldn't want to do that, given all of the psychological issues that are now proven to be as a result of social media and all of the ills in society that are linked to technology and different things that. So it's very challenging, like
Y-
you said, and
Yeah.
especially in a country that in a world that really wants to be first to market.
Hmm. Yeah. And yet there was this letter with 6 major creators and coders and people who had started AI
Right.
cautioning that we should pause and think about it. And so when they wrote that letter, I thought they might be onto something. So it's great that that's your focus. This really feeds into the previous conversation that libraries are really morphing into much more than check out a book. And they have been for a while. I know, when computers came along, there was the debate about everyone's on the computer, they're not reading books. But I think that's a service for people who are homeless who need to make a resume or get online and fill out an application. So it's really changed. I think people have come a long way about their attitudes toward the expanding role of libraries. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about how the Carmel Library kind of responds to the evolving needs of its community.
Thank you. Sure. Well, I always find that interesting because librarians are always early adapters. They're the ones that took on, learning about how the internet works so they could teach people who came into the library. And of course, they go to school for these library sciences, and so they're always sort of on, like, ready and prepared to learn everything that's coming. And so I think it's ironic that people sometimes think about the library being more old school when it's really, it's where the trends get started. It's where, like I said, the librarians are the ones that are going to be showing everyone how to research in this day and age of all the noise and clutter. But in terms of libraries, there's been a trend to becoming even more of a community hub. And we see that with, obviously, kids and families. The Carmel Public Library has 2 physical locations. The Park Branch houses the Children's Library, and we have like baby yoga, Friday film night.
Oh, I want to go to baby yoga.
I
I want to
know.
just watch the babies do yoga.
It's very relaxing, right?
It's like
I know.
puppy yoga or goat yoga, like,
Yeah,
oh,
it's the kids and their parents. It's adorable to watch, and it's good for them. And we, of course, have summer reading programs where we have people coming from all over the county because we get, like, the bubble magic person and all different types of interesting programs for kids that really stir the imagination and get kids excited about reading. And then on the foundation side, we have programs almost once a month. In the summer, we have a little hiatus, but during the year, we have programs at Carpenter Hall and Sunset Center, and sometimes also in our library. So we have community nights, and this year, we're looking at architecture, design, and a sense of place as an overarching theme for our programs. And so we've had the Bruton sisters, who were local artists here, who've had a really big influence in design and architecture. In fact, they even created art for the World's Fair, and they're relatively, they're lesser known than many artists in the area. So it was really great to, in fact, a librarian, Wendy Good, a former Carmel librarian, gave the talk and is the foremost scholar in the Bruton sisters. So that was fabulous. And this month we have, on November 16th, we have a poet laureate, the current and first poet laureate, Dr. Nzinga, who's coming from Oakland. And the name of that program is A Cultural Architect. So we have lots of really interesting programs, something for everyone, I think.
It's really exciting. Alexandra Fallon, that's who I'm talking to here on Talk of the Bay about all the exciting things happening. at the Carmel Public Library. And it's an area of interesting people because a lot of authors retire there. Have you been managed to hook up with some of the people who maybe are there to fly under the radar after retiring in Carmel?
Definitely. Jane Smiley is here, and of course she's written so many amazing books, and hopefully we'll have her back again soon. We have Meredith May, who wrote The Honey Bus, a beautiful memoir, and that was wonderful. And yeah, there are many terrific local authors that we love to have come and present to us.
I think Beverly Cleary lived in Carmel Valley. I believe she's passed away now, but she was living there for quite some time.
Yeah, and we have two other program structures, if you will. One is a local history lecture series, and this year we're going to be honoring Kip Stewart, who is a local artist, designer, and architect, and that's going to be, I think we always have a large audience for that, and sometimes we look at architects, sometimes writers, even the physical structures, how the Golden Bough came about, or the different theaters, and that's always a very big draw here. And then we started a few years ago when civil discourse seemed to take a turn, the fireside chats at the library, and so that is a different type of program where we have a discourse and we have a facilitator come, we choose a topic and to discuss, and so that's also interesting.
What are some of the topics you've tackled? This is a really brave thing, given sort of the I don't know, the tone that things have taken lately is so uncivil that the facilitator must be really good, or maybe the people that come are the ones that really want to make peace with the opposite side. Tell me more about this. It's interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, so a few in the past, we had one called The Individual versus the Collective.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, because so often people think that, well, it's just your responsibility to keep your kids off social media. If you're a good parent, you won't let them be on there. We'll solve it by good parenting.
Well, particularly during COVID, your individual rights versus the collective, right? The rights of everyone around you. I mean, we saw so much of that kind of bubbled up for us. And then we did have a talk called Father Coughlin, The Power of Words in Dangerous Times, which was a very far-reaching talk because for those listeners, I did not know who Father Coughlin was, and apparently he had 30 million viewers and was very much anti-Semitic as well as anti-government at the time and had to be taken off the airways, but he had quite a following. And so the prompt for the audience or for the people who came to talk was, can you leave your political and religious values outside of this conversation and just be public intellectuals? And it was a very interesting exercise to witness and to be part of.
Did you actually have Father Kaufman in the room?
Well, Father Coughlin, I think, passed away, I want to say, I don't know, in the 70s or 80s, but he was a priest on the airwaves during when Nazi Germany had come into power, and he had, like I said, over 30 million radio listeners. So it was named that because of how his words took hold during, and the power of words during times not unlike these, Rachel, that we're living in.
Are you planning some other ones that might get at the moment we seem to find ourselves in? Because I have to say that lately people will come up to me assuming all kinds of things because I'm Jewish and just start monologuing at me. And I find it both perplexing and a little bit baffling because some of what's being said is pretty far out there for some of the people I thought I knew. So it would be interesting to hear what you've got planned at the moment, given, just another events in the world are roiling our local communities and even friendships of people that have known each other for quite some time.
Well, I think we saw that during the last, administration, the previous one, and that, there is this divide, and there's all kinds of divides. There's the economic divide, the education. We had Tara Westover speak last year and touched on just the fact that, a college education now, to pay for a college education could cost close to $250,000 for these kids when after just 4 years of undergrad school. So there's all kinds of polarities happening, and I will let you know when we have that talk. Right now, we're, like I said, focused on this sense of place and architecture and buildings as we look at our Harrison Memorial Building, which is a 95-year-old historic building, and also our Park Branch, our kids building, also home to our local history.
And you also have the Mission there at Carmel. You have a very old building as well, right? The Adobe.
The Mission, yes. Of course, the library is not related to that, directly, but of course, we have many historical and buildings, as well as old Frank Lloyd Wright homes and Murphy and all kinds of wonderful architecture.
Absolutely. Now, I am fairly familiar with Carmel. I know that, it's been over the years changing, but is it still the community where one person I interviewed once, I think it was Doc Holliday, he was a historian who wrote The World Rushed In, and he said, yeah, this is where everyone goes to die. He was just, he's passed on now, but is it mostly retirees still? And does that mean you have lots of readers coming in? Because
when I first came here, they said newlyweds and nearly deads. That was the
okay.
that was the slogan. But I mean, we have a very diverse in terms of age board and people who are interested in coming to the library and parents. I mean, when I think about it, of course, it's always personal. You started the segment with your library experiences and your affinity for libraries and growing up in libraries, as did I. And in particular, when I moved to Carmel in 1984, the first place I visited was the library on Ocean Avenue, got my card, called my mother back in Long Island and said, Mom, I've arrived. I'm staying here in Carmel. I just got my library card.
That's a belonging, right? Once you have that, it's your entry into the whole community. As we are hearing, these are community events. The library is a gathering place. And that's a really cool story that you felt like you belonged to the town as soon as you had your library card. And that says a lot about the role of libraries over the years as the common space, of which we have fewer these days. We have parks and we have libraries, but right. Collective spaces where we can all gather are few and far between. So it's great that these persist and, in fact, are growing in need as communities change,
It's like when you think about, you asked about how the library serves in addition to books and being a hub and all this. This past year, we launched something called the Gathering Place. And of course, construction ended the day COVID closed everything down. So we had to wait 3 years to use it, to launch it officially. But it's a meeting space that accommodates up to 20 people. And you can have small student group gatherings, book clubs, nonprofit meetings, and it's being utilized. It's very popular here. So
that's exciting. We are hoping to open up some recording spaces around our listening area. So maybe we can find space there and in Salinas and Monterey and Watsonville, places where maybe people don't want to drive all the way to K-Squid and Santa Cruz, but they can still broadcast from these spaces. And with technology, I think it's becoming more and more possible to loop in people of all stripes from all places and have kind of a regional space of audio celebration, because the voice...
And that's definitely the good part about technology that brings people together. And I mean, so there's that.
Well, we're hoping we can still, invite you in as a host as well. I know you've showed some interest, and we're really excited to think about having hosts from different parts of our listening area as well. So in the 5 minutes we have left, I do want to touch on this idea that we're defending books, because I never thought I would even be talking about this in the United States, where we really value literature and we value artistic expression, and even if it's something we disagree with, we would like you to have your right to read it. And I'm wondering if you've been in the crosshairs at all, like the folks here talked about. They haven't really seen it in a big way, but they have seen it. I was wondering if it's hit your, doorstep as well as a library, where librarians were not really probably trained in the art of political discourse around banning books. But maybe I'm wrong about that.
Well, we haven't, thankfully, similar to your last guest, we have not had to deal with that. But I mean directly, but we do know it's around, and our library would push back against attempts of censorship, and carefully and thoughtfully, work together to keep the library all access, and a place where people feel they have the freedom to come and select the things that they'd like to read. And so that does require maintaining some neutrality, and also, with the idea that equity and equitable access and a safe place for everyone is at the heart of what a library is there for. And so we hold close to those guiding principles, and we feel like it's important to uphold that. And I don't think most people could really argue with those things.
Well, most people, that's true. There are some people who would, but I'm glad they haven't argued to you about this, and fortunately you haven't had to deal with it at this point, and hopefully you won't. Any final thoughts on upcoming programming that you might want to shout out in the last couple of minutes of our conversation, Alexandra?
I would just say that one of my favorite books that I did notice that was banned was Catcher in the Rye. I also want to shout out to the Brooklyn Library for doing a fantastic job for providing digital access to people around the country when they can't find the books they're looking for. So that's fantastic. And in terms of the Carmel Public Library Foundation, I want to thank everyone for coming to all of our programs, for coming to our libraries. And we are part of the Monterey County Gives campaign that adds a matching fund to any money that is raised. And if you go on the Monterey County Gives.org website and find Carmel Public Library Foundation, we are in the midst of raising money for the very thing we're talking about today, these wonderful programs that bring people together, that educate people, that inform people, and that really provide a space for civility.
Fantastic. Well, Alexandra, I really appreciate you taking the time this evening to talk to us about the Carmel Public Library and all of its programs and your vision for the future and the Dave Eggers talk. And if people want more information, I know you have a website. Do you want to give it out?
I do. CarmelPublicLibraryFoundation.org.
Fantastic.
It's long, but it says what it means. It is what it is.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time tonight, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time as well.
Absolutely. Take care. That was Alexandra Fallon of Friends of the Carmel Public Library. I'm Rachel Ann Goodman, and coming up in just a little while, it's Ryan Althouse. He'll be doing the kooky side of crazy, and he will be welcoming River Krimmer as his guest for a discussion about our sensitivity towards political correctness. How may it affect individual mental health, and what are some larger sociological implications in terms of inclusion and acceptance into community? And I would add, what is politically correct anyway? What does that mean? Kooky Side of Crazy, bound to be interesting, 6 to 7 here on K-Squid. And the views and opinions of this program coming up do not reflect those of the staff, volunteers, and board of KSQD and Natural Bridges Media. Coming up next, it's First Person Singular, a commentary show that you could write a commentary for if you felt so inclined. They take submissions. All you need to do is go onto our website and check out the First Person Singular page for all the directions about how you could make your own personal commentary or editorial and put it on the airwaves. I'm Rachel Ann Goodman. I'll be back again with you next week right here on Talk of the Bay on K-Squid 90.7 FM. Stay tuned.